All right. Thanks everyone for being here for yet another exciting edition of the Werewolf Technical Steering Committee meeting. It is the 6th of August, 2025. And yeah, we have, I don't know, I want to say a light agenda, but we've added a thing or two to it. I don't have any action items from before. It's mostly the BOFs that we've been coordinating, and that's a little bit of that is on the discussion for today. But before we get started, is there anything that isn't represented here on our discussion agenda that people would like to add to it and see added? And Christian, I did see your comment about wanting to talk specifically about the
Yeah, but
overlay
if it's on the
refactor.
agenda, that's okay.
No,
Just
I have it here. So
okay,
uh,
cool.
I put a link to it, and then I will make sure that we do talk about it. Anyone else? All right. With that, this is our first meeting back since we had uh, our BOF at the 2025 PEARC conference, and I thought maybe Rose, you could give a quick debrief on how that went, maybe lessons learned or anything that we should imagine for maybe our collaboration with OpenHPC on their BOF or our collective BOF at SC, but especially for next year or whenever our next BOF is. How did it go?
Was awesome. It was very exciting to be there. We also brought some werewolf shirts. I feel like I should be wearing my werewolf shirt right now, but that's okay.
Oh wow, that's a winter shirt.
Okay, well, I can give you a shirt. When am I going to see you next?
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's that's a problem. Yeah. Maybe I can get one sent, but that's kind of a far. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was wonderful. We had George Washington University that showed up and talked about their 4 different clusters that they're provisioning with Warewulf. We had Ian here talk about Ubuntu, and there were at least one other person in the crowd that was excited about that. We actually get a lot more interest in that, so that was very exciting. Thanks, Ian, for being there as well. Tim was there with a microphone, and he was, thank you very much. He was doing that, making sure that the crowd was heard. And then, of course, Jonathan gave an overview, which was really nice. And Chris was there as well. He was he had some photo shots. So he's got all the good pictures that we were able to post on social media. And that was really nice to kind of share the love there. I think one of the things that maybe we could do a little bit better, and again, it went over very well, is getting a sense of the crowd ahead of time. So maybe kind of intentionally doing that, getting a sense of like how many people are totally new to Werewolf and maybe need like an overview. And I think that was one of the things, Jonathan, that you said that you learned going to a different BOF. You were like, oh shoot, I didn't have
It
that
was
at
the
all.
OpenHPC BOF. In fact, I went and they started with an overview of what OpenHPC is, and I was like, oh wait, we weren't planning to do that for Werewolf. That's a problem.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So I mean, even just kind of gauging where we are at, in that audience. There was probably about 30, maybe 40 people in the room. So it was well attended, and almost everybody stayed for the whole BOF, and they were very interested in asking questions and engaging. And I thought that it went really well. So yeah, just getting a sense of who we're talking to first, how deep their technical knowledge is and what kind of questions that they have, maybe a little bit more interaction up front. That was kind of my take.
Great. Thank you for that. I think, yeah, I also think it went relatively well, especially for a first outing, first official outing anyway. And I agree with these kind of thoughts for next time. But any other comments or questions about the perk buff? Ian, how'd you feel about it? How did it go?
I think it went well, I mean, we got a decent attendance, and knowing how jam-packed Perk is with all sorts of different things, I, 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 I feel like we pulled in a decent amount of people given everything else that goes on at the same time.
Yeah. All right. Well, great. Next item on the agenda is Tim. You're working on IPv6 support. We have this pull request here linked, but you had I haven't read it since I pasted it in here, but a discussion question for us. Tell us about IPv6 and decisions you think we need to make.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you remembered that because I was struggling this morning to remember what I wanted to bring to the technical steering committee. Yeah, so I worked that patch for IPv6 on iPXE, and so I just hacked up a quick cluster on my virtual system, and I was able to provision a fully IPv6, just jamming IPv6 addresses into IP-adder. It populated almost everything appropriately. So my question at that time would be, one particular route for IPv6 is make like the IP-adder work for just IPv6 as well. So condition on if it's an IPv6 address. If it doesn't need to be have both, just do both of them. That would prevent a dual stack, but in my experience, sometimes dual stack can be a little bit of a pain. But in general, it just works. So in thinking a little bit further, I'm starting to go more towards let's make IP-adder 6 work and family, just because that would allow folks to build out an IPv4 cluster, get IPv6 working, and then turn off IPv4 if they want to do a progress. But I just wanted to see which way folks wanted to go before I started attacking the overlay files. Open for discussion.
I have an opinion, but I will wait and hear what other people are thinking as well. Any opinions on IPv6 implementation from the room?
It should happen.
Sorry.
It should happen.
Yes. Like if we need IPv6. If there's limited IPv6 capabilities right now, it's
yeah, I think the question isn't should we support IPv6, it's should we support dual stack. I think is the crux of the question.
Like one or the other, I'm okay with. Dual stack is a pain.
Yeah, the dual stack is the only option.
Yeah,
because it's kind of so normal that you have a dual stack all over.
I agree.
Yeah. This is also, I think, my opinion. We've had the IP6 or IP-6 or whatever it is flags there for a while for who knows how successful effect, but they're there. And I think that, Tim, I agree with your description that we want to be able to support dual stack even if for the only reason that it provides a gentler on-ramp for people bringing IPv6 into an environment and then migrating to it later. So
that was my only thinking. The only negative for me was that it would increase the amount of kind of logic in the overlays, and I was going to be a little bit lazy and say if it's mostly working anywhere, I only have to fix one or two things. But no, I think that's probably a better way of going. Well, especially if
for the most part, though, shouldn't it just be a matter of like if you specify IP6 adder, like hand it to whatever network configuration the overlay is configuring, or like where is the complexity that you're imagining for that?
It's not really complexity, it's duplicating, because everywhere you have an IP adder, you have to duplicate it for IPv6 adder and just duplicate all that logic over and over again throughout the entire stack.
Yeah, but that holds true just for the network part. And other parts, we don't use that much IP addresses. Yeah, but the network part is important.
Yeah. I just felt it was not a decision I could make on my own, given the nuances there. And I think there's at least a few. I know of a couple IPv6 only clusters that are in production. I'm not aware if they're running Warewulf or not, but I know there are a couple out there. And some of them are a relatively large size.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Don't break anything with IPv4.
Your phone's failing us now, Jeremy.
Uh-oh. Can you not hear me at all?
Now we can.
You're back now.
Okay. I was gonna say I am perfectly happy supporting IPv6 as long as nothing in IPv4 breaks. Because the usage, you're right. There's a few clusters out there using v6, but it's such a rarity that we can't do anything to inhibit the support for v4.
Yeah, of course.
And in that sense, by just putting a if IPv6 if statement everywhere will make the migration of the overlays a little bit easier, because you know, it should not touch any of the regular logic.
All right.
One last thing, I was thinking of not supporting DHCPD, given that it is end of life, in terms of building out the support for that.
I think that's reasonable. Like not updating the logic for the DHCPD config and all of that. Yeah,
It's not on my priority list, and since you know, I'm not getting paid to do this, other folks can fill in those files.
Yeah, for context, just if people are not following this, ISC DHCPD is no longer in Enterprise Linux 10. So our plan, that such as it is, what we've been discussing is anticipating a move to DNS Mask as our default DHCP provider, and starting with that in 10. And then, hey, we already support it. It's just not the default right now. But I think it makes sense to have v6 support be there. And then if people want v6, they can switch to DNS Mask.
That makes sense.
Here. Is it actually EOL upstream? Is that what's motivating this? I hadn't followed that. Okay.
Let me check.
What do they point to? What does that project say? Hey, you should be using this instead.
They have, the ISC has their own
Kia.
They have a new one.
replacement for that. Yeah, so
I see.
that would be where you would put the effort in terms of providing Kia support in Warewulf and giving IPv6 there.
I see. Fair enough. All right. Next thing on the agenda. Rose, we have been talking about a Warewulf user group, and Rose and Ian and I were discussing this at PEARC. Tell us about what you're thinking.
I'm thinking let's get it on the calendar and start rolling with it and inviting people. And so before I just pick a day and time, I mean, there was lots of options, of course. There's lots of days and lots of times in the month. I figured if we kept it to a Wednesday, I mean, this meeting is on the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays. And so I thought maybe the 2nd Wednesday would be good, although that is quite a commitment for those of you who are here consistently. I mean, not that you need to go to a user group all the time, but I figured once a month, 2nd Wednesday of the month, about 60 minutes, an hour, have some people come in. There's lots of topics in my mind that we could talk about and have people come in and do a little presentation and then have discussion. I mean, that's how I imagine a user group rolling, but you guys probably have more experience than I do. So.
And this mirrors what I was imagining. I would have a lot of highlight here on this one of trying to, as often as possible, highlight a specific user or user site and what they're doing. But that doesn't mean that the rest of this isn't shouldn't also happen.
Yes, we've got the Kubernetes on the mind.
Yes.
So that'll probably be the people that I reach out to the first. Hey, you want to talk about what you're thinking and what you're actually doing? Come talk about it in our user group.
So you're talking about a first one in September?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will repeat something that Tim said to me is schedule frequently and cancel judiciously. So I like that we have it on the calendar, but then if there's like a holiday or a conference conflict or something, just say, hey, we're not going to have it this month. And that sounds good to me. Any thoughts or advice or comments before we kind of bless this and send Rose and or Ian to go off and start organizing this?
That's right, Ian. There's my buddy. Shane, what do you think? I'd be curious of your thoughts about a user group, a Warewulf user group, a WUG. WUG.
WUG sounds like a good idea to me.
Cool. Okay. I shall put it on the calendar, invite you all. It'll be on Zoom for that hour. WUG, 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 WUG. That's right.
Cool.
Just WUG. Well, it has to be Warewulf. Oh, I guess yeah, I don't know. I like the double W, but I guess.
Same. Just saying.
All right. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, and feel free, and you have access to all of this, of course, but put it on like the Blue Sky and wherever else we have stuff. And then I think the advice I heard so far was to not record it so as to encourage more audience participation. What is the thought process? Yes, we're nodding on that. Okay, great. Cool. And then that also encourages people to actually come. But maybe we could have like a little write-up, like just bullet points of what happened in it. And it was great. You should come to the next one in the Slack or something.
Another
Cool.
option is you could potentially, if they have like a 10-minute presentation, record that part of it, or at least publish their slides.
I like publishing the slides. That's a good idea. All right. Next thing is, well, actually, I'd like to reorder, if that's okay, Tim, with you, to put OpenHPC first, and then we'll kind of end with what's the current status of the next releases. So, yeah, tell us what's going on at OpenHPC.
Yeah, for some reason I scrolled way beyond the bottom here. Yeah, OpenHPC 4.0 is progressing. Lots of patches flying around through there. So it's, as you may or may not know, the major versions are a fork. They're a split on it. So previous versions get supported a little bit less. So that's just a note in terms of how things go on that. Currently, it's only, the first round of testing is EL10 on Alma Linux and Confluent. That's just kind of random choices, but that's where the initial testing is. So in terms of Warewulf, I've started some initial testing on that. There are a few kind of critical trivial blockers that I think we could potentially get into a next version. For instance, you can't install it from the binaries because it's not being built. But the other one is that it depends on the DHCP server. So just by dropping that, I think we could get at least get binary packages in there so folks can test it on their own. That's not an issue for OpenHPC because we can just change the spec file because it's built internally. And the other main thing is that there are no Enterprise Linux 10 or almost Linux and Rocky Linux 10 images for Warewulf. So that would be great if those could be published. It's not, I have a pending PR for that. It's not critical for initial testing. I have slowly started working on that, but at some point, other folks should probably test it as well. And that'll be better to use those as opposed to my personal repo on that.
Great. Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
You continue.
Some work on getting YQ into upstream EL. That's still progressing. Adrian's working on that. And if that were to fail, we are going to get that into OpenHPC. For those of you who are not familiar with how OpenHPC works, it's a horrible mess of LaTeX on the background. And there's a custom LaTeX/bash parser in it that extracts all the instructions and then runs that file, which means that all the instructions can't be interactive, right? They have to be actual scripts that work. But at the same time, it needs to be readable and for folks to actually understand what's going on. And YQ has increased the readability immensely as opposed to using tons of sed scripts, which has been the traditional way of doing it, which makes it readable, right? You just replace this line with this line, but with the YQ with that. So that will help with readability, and going forward, we're going to put some YQ in there to get things going. So that's sort of where we are, and hopefully we'll get into that first round of testings on that.
And the timeline for this, forgive me if you said my headphones dropped out for a moment, is to have this available for SC. Is that the...
Yeah, typically they target SC and ISC for their releases. So yeah, and it takes a while, given the huge matrix of testing that they do, it takes a while to nail all those down. So it's not like you just do a bump support. And I've seen a lot of changes in 4.0. So there's a lot of work going on updating a lot of things. So
so I have written down that we need to get packages built for EL10 and the images merged up to use EL10 images with Warewulf. Anything else that we need to have on our radar on the short term to ensure that Warewulf 4 is available for incorporation into OHPC 4?
No, just the Alma Linux and our Rocky Linux 10 images. And I'm not sure that they might be doing another distro right now, and I'm failing on that one right now.
The OpenOiler?
Yes. So that's another one that they use. Technically, building packages for EL10 is not on the hot list because that could be changed on the blocking list because that could be done internally in OpenHPC. But
it's good for us to demonstrate that it's possible, at least.
Well, when that happens, then I will just port those changes to our version as well. So someone's got to do it. It just depends on where it hits first. So I'm in the middle of those kind of changes right now to get those, and that's just sort of the basic. And I would prioritize those over getting DNS mask working as well. That will also have to happen as well. But if we can get those changes to hit relatively soon, like on the next bump on a version, I think that would allow other people to easily test it for whatever reasons, because there is interest in the community for testing Warewulf 10 beyond OpenHPC. And right now you can't yum install it. And yes, we know that DHCP is not working and things like that, but that's folks that are less skilled in terms of, or less experienced in building RPM packages can handle.
And you say getting DNS mask working. It should be working. We just, when we build an EL10 package, it needs to be using it by default, basically.
Yeah, just getting some of those defaults in. And again, it's not blockers, but.
Okay.
Is Tim?
Yeah.
Have we has OpenOiler moved up enough? At least the version of OpenOiler moved up enough to where we can support Warewulf?
I am unsure on that.
Okay.
I'm drawing
it's
a blank.
It's the Go version that's the blocker. Because we're moving, every time we move Warewulf forward, it seems to jump OpenOiler support for Go.
Yeah, I am not following that one at all. I think someone wrote some Warewulf support for it.
I mean, ultimately, it's just right now we've only used SUSE and Rocky as the determiners of what we will support in Golang. And so when they move up, we have been willing to move up. But if we want to decide that we support OpenOiler, we just need to be tracking what Golang that is.
It's a tough one because they seem to be about 4 years behind in terms
and then the other thing,
version.
like, Tim, is OpenHPC like a stickler for the distribution is OpenHPC built with the distribution that it is targeting? And is that like a hard requirement?
I am unsure of the total magic that happens behind. I believe the packages for like the EL versions are done on Red Hat proper.
Right.
But I'm not sure how.
Well, but that's not really what I mean, though.
All the packages are built on OBS.
Right, but that's still using like mock in order to do it, and it's building it in a user space.
But the package, as far as I know, the packages are built on the operating system that they're actually running on.
Yeah, that's normal, but so far that's been our Golang stickler. Like, we haven't brought in a Golang from outside of Rocky or Apple to build with. And in theory, you could do something like that to support whatever version of Golang we happen to be using for Warewulf on OpenOiler, but that doesn't mean that OpenHPC would want to do that.
Right. Well, it's an RPM, so you can just take the source RPM, throw it in, and it's going to pull all the packages. But yeah, I get it. But I like I said, OpenOiler is the one we've always kind of pushed just because it is not as current as all the other operating systems. And it may have boiled down to, I don't know. We'll have to have, that's a discussion we'll have to have at OpenHPC, that if we're supporting it, it might have to support an older version of Warewulf.
I am opinionated and motivated to want to support OpenHPC whenever we can. So if there is something that would make incorporation of Warewulf 4 into OpenHPC more broadly applicable, please do let us know.
Yeah, I will take a look at it. I do try to track all of the different versions of software packages that OpenHPC uses and has. It's a matter of again, not making sure that we don't leapfrog Open Euler support, and then secondarily, OpenHPC has to support specific versions of Open Euler because we typically will have to move to the latest version. And my assumption being with OpenHPC 4, we would definitely support the latest version of Open Euler. But I can go find out what version of that is and make sure that we're synced up. But the bad part is it would typically lock us into lock Warewulf into a specific maximum version of Golang in case there's a feature that came out that we wanted. But I'll get an answer by the next meeting as to what version of Open Euler that we can use and what version of Golang we have available.
Tim, is there an OpenHPC workshop at SC?
Not anymore.
They have a booth.
Okay.
There used to be.
It might be cool if there was like a workshop where we just dig into these actual project discussions and get like downstream projects in the room with it. But you know, it's probably late for this year, but that I know I would enjoy that kind of thing.
So, you know, it's a good point because in previous years, Carl used to set up a workshop prior to the show. It used to be, I think, it run on Monday morning, so people could get in on Sunday night. But they would run a multi-hour workshop, and it was primarily around training. Anybody who wanted to come in and learn OpenHPC, sure. They bring the hardware, and you could sit down and actually do installs.
Yeah, what I'm imagining more is like a coordination meeting for OpenHPC and whatever downstream projects are willing to be a part of the conversation. But yeah,
that could be done at a booth as well, right? OpenHPC. We could go hang out at the booth at a certain time.
Yeah. Great. Okay, last thing on the agenda is the version 4.6.4 release. So we did put out a 4.6.3 on the 1st, which I was selfishly motivated to get in because we had REST API additions that CIQ needed. But it had some bug fixes in there as well. Thank you to everyone who contributed. So our 4.6.4 is, scheduled for September 1st or thereabouts. Right now, these are the pull requests that are in it, and we will pull out refactored overlay class here in a minute explicitly. But most of this, if you notice, is like version bumps from Dependabot. We might not be able to ingest all of these. I just saw that these were hanging around with no milestones, so I threw them in here to at least look at them. But the limiting factor on these tends to be Golang version, so we'll see if we're able to incorporate those. And then I found... this is another one that was in the 4.6.3 that I was afraid of, so I bumped to 4.6.4.
Yeah, that's also, we should speak about that one.
Okay, yeah, let's pull this up.
That's nearly, that's nearly more important. The thing is that we use the Golang bool variables for all the bools we have inside the files, which means if you want to wipe a disk, wipe a file system, and this is always expressed as bools. And we are using the Golang bools for that, and that's always have the caveat that if it's set true in the profile, you cannot set it fails in the... Yeah,
because Golang doesn't differentiate between false and unset.
Set it on the node, and it has the other side effect. If it's now set true in the configuration, you can't set it back fails anymore in the command line, on the command line.
Yeah.
So, and the solution for this is simply to replace them by this. We have WW bool, so an own bool type which falls back to a string. And if we use that type on it, that's all okay. That's the whole change for it. The thing is, and that I have to offload to Jonathan. I don't know how this conversion utility works. So you have the
Oh, the upgrade thing?
the upgrade thing. I changed the code there, and I have absolutely no clue if this is what side effects there can be or not.
Yeah, that's reasonably simple to like I can update the upgrade test
Yeah,
suite and-
it's in there. You just have to check and approve it.
Yeah.
That it's right. For the rest, I'm pretty sure it does what it does what it should.
Okay.
But it will then mean as soon as you have installed, I think for now it's 464. I think
It's tagged for 464. Yeah.
it's tagged for 464. You can't then go back with the configuration, or it will fail because then I think it makes the bools to string and then
Yeah, it'll quote them.
it
Yeah,
will
in
go.
the
Right.
But that's normal. We don't expect to support backwards compatibility for config files, taking them backwards. We just expect forward
That's right.
compatibility. So yeah, I was afraid of this because of that that type change, and in my idealistic perfect mind, I want to support pointers to bools rather than strings for this. But as Christian has pointed out, it becomes hairy very quickly, and I was tired in the middle of the night, so. I will probably be convinced of his implementation here, but
It's
too late.
you can go back to pointers, but if you want to,
Yeah.
perhaps there are sometimes perhaps yeah, I can help you out. If you go to the next PR I sent in, that was also when testing the stuff, the whole motivation of the refactored overlay class. Yeah. So the main problem was I found that if you there was an error for it, and I think there's an issue for it. OpenMore, is it?
For refactored overlay class. So this was
I did not.
I don't think you created it. I think we just talked about it on Slack. I don't remember an issue.
We just talk about that. So it was if you create an you couldn't delete an overlay, and if you created an overlay and wanted to put a file into it, it says, oh yeah, the overlay exists and I don't want to do anything and I need a new overlay. So there was something broken in the create command. So it failed, created the overlay, and if you want then to edit a file in the overlay, it failed again. It was something like this. And the whole problem there, so I could have solved it in the normal way and fixing it because I think I found the error. But the main problem, but the underlying problem was that you could get an overlay object which was invalid. And so we had so Jonathan put in a whole lot of tests when he last touched the thing. When he got an overlay, he always had to check if it exists or not. And so my idea was then, yeah, if we have so if you create an overlay object or if you get an overlay object, it's a valid one. And if it's not valid, so if you want to create a wrong overlay, you would, and it does not exist, you get back an error, and then you have to call create, which will then create you and create also the underlying directory. Then it's also then a valid overlay again.
Yeah, let me try and describe that a little bit again. Just so
Okay,
right in the previous way, there's like an overlay object, and if you want to make an overlay, you create that object and then you call create on it. So you make one that doesn't exist and then you say make it. But then that means that everywhere you want to use it, you have to check does exist on it. And so Christian's new implementation here, if you try to get an overlay that doesn't exist, it returns an error now, and you have to handle that error. And so to create one, there's just a base level create overlay function.
But that Jonathan merges it, I also then we added a lot of tests. So there's now all the WW control comments now have tests if they work or not. And I have to admit, honestly, that I think Gemini for this. And it's really the thing is, you can.
It's great at making test suites.
Yeah. It's great when you point it. Look here, there's the test how I want it.
Yes, exactly
Take that implementation and use that implementation there, and then it's really rolling on. But you really have to explicitly tell, use because we have this test env where it puts in files and things like that, and using that, and we really explicitly tell it, yeah, do it that way. Don't try with your own ideas there. Just blind stubborn use that approach, then they work. And I think you have to check if you did that. If you go through the real commits, Jonathan, there, when writing that tests, some also are not just tests. I just always call them edit tests. If you go there to, go down a bit. No, there you won't see it. There you won't see it. Go back to just the edit test, and I also had
here.
I had to fix some errors. No. Go to the commits itself.
Oh, I see. You want
I don't know which ones, but for some also showed up some errors which are not, which I then also had to fix, and which are then, I think it's for overlay delete or
you're
something
wanting this?
like this. For overlay delete, there's a test edit, and then there's also a fix for an error which I then found by the test.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little bit embarrassed that I did this the way it is right now. So I'm thanking Christian for going back and fixing it.
Yeah, that sometimes you find code which you wrote yourself and you're embarrassed of. Sometimes I'm also you're proud of and think, oh yeah, that was cool, but not always.
So yeah, I need to review that one, or someone needs to review it. But do you consider that one ready to go? I know you've been pushing more stuff into it recently, but is it done, or does it need more work? So done?
It's
Okay,
done, good. And it also uses, I also did a test for edit.
Yeah.
There I explicitly had to tell use set instead of editor.
Okay. So with that, these are the issues.
The only test where I think which is a bit murky is the one which is doing the change ownership, because it will run as a user, and as a user you can, as not root, you cannot really do a change ownership.
Yeah,
but there the whole I don't know how well we tested that code before the interface was not well designed before. There's also a change because there you could just really shown it to a user and not to user and group. And now the interface changed that you have to write it user and group and use it. And that's that you have to use numerical UIDs. That was also not checked before, but it would have thrown an error because the underlying OS shown also must
only
use,
does numbers.
Yeah, only does numbers. So, and that was kind of so now it's really parsing it in the main and saying, yeah, that's not a number. And before that, the shown function would have just thrown an error.
Okay.
That's it.
So aside from the pending PRs, these are the issues that are currently tagged against the milestone. I'm going to make one for Rocky Linux 10 support, or EL10 support. I'm just going to say EL10 packages in CI/CD is what I'm going to say here. And we'll have that as an expectation for the next release. But other than that, anything else that needs to be included in the 464 milestone? Not that other things can't be, but that should be pulled in right now from this conversation. There is a milestone for 46X. So these are things that I think could be done without a 47. So if you are in the mood to be developing or throwing work at other people, feel free to look at this big list and say, hey, that should probably get pulled into this release or another one coming up. Otherwise, we'll just be happy with our increment and put another release out at the end of the month. And
So I have a shout out for the, I don't know which one it was, it just hit, about adding the ability to add and remove overlays from profiles.
Yes.
I haven't looked at it specifically, but that might be able to impact how we do OpenHPC scripts. I've wanted it a couple times. I have some of
I
the
don't understand the problem there. Sorry, I put it also in the comment. I don't know what the problem is.
So right now, when you set overlays for nodes or profiles, you must always set the entire list. So this is just say add an overlay to a node or add a profile to a node. We support this with tags, but we don't with profiles and overlays.
Yeah, the thing is with overlays, with tags, that's also the wrong semantic. I think with tags, we should also have. The thing is, I think overlays are really string array, which it's a string array. You just set a string array, where in tags we really add and remove tags. So the only thing would be that we rewrite the parser that it finds if the argument is a string. No, it's not an array in Go. It's a slice. If it's a string slice, it should also add and remove.
And we want the ability to set it, but we should just also have the ability to add and remove.
That's the only way.
I think it needs some work to understand exactly how we would want it to work on the command line, but it is a functionality that I know I want all the time. So, and I know, Tim, you have encountered this in OHPC as well. So I have tagged it. I don't know if we'll be able to do it, but it is good to set higher goals.
The way would be, it would be interesting if we would say, okay, if we would also.
It's a string now, not a list.
It is a slice of strings. It's a string slice.
Strings, yeah.
So a list, Golangs lists are basically slices. But it is not just a string. It is a list of strings.
The thing is, where I'm now kind of just struggling is that, with that, we are kind of just adding more and more kind of command line options. I think we should try to remove command line options because there are just too many of them right now. Yeah, but
what I can say is this would drastically improve the usability of the platform for people, especially as we're encouraging more and more overlays and profiles and swapping them in and out for things.
But on the other hand, you still have, if you are on the command line, we have the edit command.
Yeah, the reason that comes up then is the desire to make it scriptable for the OHPC use case, that it can't be redirected.
That's the direction I'm thinking of, that I don't know how to really, that we say, okay, you shell out and shell, so that you could really pipe it out and then pipe it back. There's Wipe or something like this, or Sponge, I think it's called, this tool, but that's not the way to do that.
So another thing that would help here would just be the ability to get the value of a field for a node, which we don't currently have. You have to grep that out of the output list. That could help, but it would still be a little bit.
Yeah, but no, that's you have the JSON option there, and that's relatively easy then to get that out.
But in OpenHPC, someone's going to have to type 2 lines just to copy, things in there.
Yeah,
have to type in the.
Yeah. As we talk, I'm having a thought here for how this could be done relatively easily. So maybe I will have some time and whip something together, and then we can comment on whether we like that or not.
So just another approach I thought of and discarded, but since we talked closely to it, one idea would be potentially to have sort of some YQ ability for general werewulf.conf and nodes.conf, so that you could just manipulate that as part of the command line, like wwctl conf werewolf.conf and then give a string in there, like you would just set some value to some other value that would be roughly YQ syntax.
Yeah, that's like you have an Xcat.
I think I would. I'm a little bit afraid of that, but I say if that's something you would like, put that in an issue and describe how you would want it to work, and then that might be worth considering. But I think my biggest concern there is it then becomes heavily dependent on the data structure in the YAML file. Right now, we change that, and if we change it, we put it in upgrade, but that would much more expose that format to the user interface.
And that's why I discarded that thought.
Yeah.
But I thought I would bring it up here just in case it triggered some other thoughts in terms of approaches internally, how to make that interface a little bit more generic as opposed to a one-off inside the profile language.
This is already here. I'm just adding this note here to.
I think it'd be more worthwhile to get YQ into OpenHPC and Apple than to do that inside a Warewulf.
Yeah. All right. Anything more that we should discuss before we call it for today? All right. As always, thank you everyone for being here, for participating, for supporting the project with your time and your contributions and your mind share. We appreciate it, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Talk to you later.
All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.